an ever-changing world, Off Hollywood Media presents a voice of truth and inspiration, resonating a vibration of love and understanding, illuminating new paths for new directions, as we, as one, strive for higher and higher levels of consciousness, always remembering life changes. And now, your host, our MC, our master of change, Filippo Voltaggio.
I am excited to be hosting this show tonight, in particular this night, because we have two of the smartest people on the radio show. As a matter of fact, one of the doctors, Dr. William Tiller, is known as one of the smartest men in the world. And so I can't wait to bring him on. And that's Dr. William Tiller. And we also have Doug DeVito on, who is an author and also one of the head of planning for the Reconnection. So I can't wait to bring them on in just a moment. So I won't have a long monologue today because I want to be able to give these two gentlemen as much time as we possibly can. But just to keep with the format of our show, I did have something to say. And I thankfully had a friend remind me of this particular subject just today. You know, I'm very busy right now, and I'm not boasting when I say this, because that could mean that I'm not very good at delegating. It could mean that I haven't manifested or attracted the right people, or enough of them, I should say, because I've definitely got right people around me, enough of them to do all that there is to be done here at Life Changes. Or it could mean that I am, unorganized. It could mean a lot of things. Or it could mean that we're just growing so fast that there's really a lot to do. And I know it also means, like, for example, I have about 1,567, actually, exactly, emails that are waiting for a response from me, over 700 Facebook messages, and I haven't even looked at Twitter in years. So, yeah, there's a lot going on, and plus there are a lot of ways that we are being bombarded nowadays between phone calls and emails and Facebook, which didn't exist not long ago, and Twitter and whatever else is coming down the pike. There's a lot of information, and I'm sure we'll get maybe into a little bit of that, because information is certainly important, and how we get that is important too. So I've been really busy. And so I have not had very much personal time, very much time to even get on Facebook. But every once in a while, to me, it's like a little vacation, actually, to go on Facebook and check out what my friends are doing. All 5,000 of them, literally. Anyway, so I am on there, and on occasion, I'll happen to see that a really close friend of mine is having a birthday coming up in the week. So I'll write this friend. Once in a blue moon, I'll write somebody and say on their wall, "Happy birthday." And a lot of times, too many times, for my taste, I get an answer back that says, "It's not till Thursday." And it's Sunday. And I'm thinking, really? Does that really matter anymore? Especially in this day and age, with so much going on and as busy as we all are, and the fact that a friend who's busy or a friend who's not busy either remembers or happens to see that it's your birthday coming up, and they send you a note saying, "Happy birthday, wishing you the best, blah, blah, blah," you write back, "It's not till Thursday?" And a lot of these people probably are the kind of people that, you can't take them out to lunch the day before. It has to be on their birthday. It's like, well, what if another friend wants to take you out? And I'm thinking, people, there is so much information coming through. There are so many important things happening. And yes, we need to take time to celebrate each other and enjoy each other. And if we do that on a Sunday, when your birthday is on Thursday, or Christmas is on Saturday, or Hanukkah's on Friday, any time that we reach out to each other and share love, share compassion, as far as I'm concerned, when someone does that to me, that's my birthday. So of all the friends that I have, and the very close friends who I rarely get to talk to or see these days because I'm traveling a lot and working a lot and et cetera, when they reach out to send me a voice message or a Facebook message or a text message or whatever, that's my birthday. That's as good as Christmas, because it means that there's no holiday. Stevie Wonder wrote a song like that. I just called to say I love you. I just wrote to say I love you. And I think there could be a lot more of I love you going on than waiting around for Thursday's birthday for people to remember us. And I just wanted to say that. And with that, I am happy to be hosting Life Changes with Filippo tonight. And I want to remind everybody that we are found at www.lifechanges.ws every week here on the BBS Radio Network. And today we have two guests. And ironically, we haven't had two guests before except a year ago. And that was the first time. And those were two guests from the Reconnection. And here we have two guests from Mastery that is connected to the Reconnection. It's all connected, actually, isn't it? So our first guest is Dr. William Tiller, who is Professor Emeritus of Stanford University's Department of Materials Science. Spent 34 years in academia after 9 years as an advisory physicist with the Westinghouse Research Laboratories. In his conventional science field, he has published over 250 scientific papers, 3 books, and holds several patents. In addition, for the past 30 years, he has been pursuing serious experimental and theoretical studies in the field of psychoenergetics, which is becoming a very important part of tomorrow's physics. In this new era, he has published an additional 100 scientific papers and 4 seminal books. He is well recognized for his participation in the popular film, What the Bleep Do We Know? So welcome to the show, Dr. William Tiller.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
It's a pleasure to have you. And I'd like to go ahead and introduce Doug DeVito as well, who is head of planning for the Reconnection. He is the first authorized instructor of reconnective healing worldwide. He has been instrumental in encouraging the research that is happening with world-renowned scientists Gary Schwartz, William Tiller, who's on our show tonight, and Konstantin Krotkov. He sends them the next level of healing for humanity and validated by science from Rainbow News. You know what? He'll have to explain what that. And he recently presented Reconnection healing research findings at the ISSEEM conference with Gary Schwartz and Ann Baldwin. He's also an author and has a book coming out very soon that we'll get to talk about a little bit. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Doug DeVito.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on your show today. What a pleasure to be here, and also what a great pleasure to be on the show with you, Bill. I'm looking forward to catching up with you next week.
Me too.
That's
Life
right.
is busy. We all know that.
Yeah.
Well, and next
So
week,
happy birthday for whenever it comes to both of you.
I love it.
Thank you, Dr. Tiller. Thank you. I appreciate that. What they're talking about next week is indeed the 8th Annual North American Mastery Conference, where they will both be presenting, along with speakers Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, John Holland, Danian Brinkley, Catherine Brinkley, Terry Cole Whitaker, and Eric Pearl. So before we get into that, let's start with Dr. William Tiller. I actually heard a couple people say this, but Doug DeVito was one of them who said, you're one of the smartest people in the world right now. How does that feel?
Well, I don't really believe it. And if you ask my wife, you'll find out that I'm not. But that's all right. After 58 years of marriage, she's still putting up with me.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, it was actually. I have to say that I'm guilty. This last weekend, I actually said that on tape. So, Bill, that's probably going to chase you. That I said that you're one of the smartest people on the planet.
Well, as long as you say I'm one of, that's fine. There's lots of company.
What the exciting thing is that you're both in good company, and that the company is coming out to talk about what they know. And knowing what you know, I understand that you have had resistance in the scientific world.
Of course. Look, let's go all the way back to the days of Galileo, okay? When Copernicus had said his bit and Kepler was finding new results and Newton was in the wings, and the establishment, which is most establishments get full of hubris, they wouldn't even look through his telescope at the experimental data because they knew what were the answers, where the truth was. And of course, they were very, very wrong. Well, that's a human failing that occurs again and again over time, and it's the way it is today in orthodox science. Orthodox science, there are two issues that are very important. One is that the unstated assumption of science since the days of Descartes has been that no human qualities of consciousness, intention, emotion, mind, or spirit can significantly influence a well-designed target experiment in physical reality. And our experiments of the last decade or so have shown that that's completely wrong in today's world. However, the hubris is such that they don't want to look at the experimental data. And the reason that occurs, and I've only begun to really understand it recently, is that science looks for internal self-consistency relative to its reference frame for viewing nature. And the one that we've had for the last 400 years has been distance time as a reference frame. And the idea has come that that's all nature is, that nature expresses itself only through distance time. Well, if you look at the issue of consciousness, intention, emotion, mind, spirit, parapsychology, psychophysiology, love, etc., these are phenomena of nature that are not distance time dependent. And therefore it is impossible to use orthodox science to truly understand these things. Can't use quantum mechanics, can't use relativity theory, can't use any of these sorts of things because this is a class of phenomena in nature that has been around since the ancient days of the Greeks or even before, but we have not discriminated the reference frame for viewing it properly versus the reference frame distance time with which we have viewed that category of phenomena in nature. And orthodox science has done a great job with respect to that. But relative to that, humans are just meat. And we all know humans are not just meat. The thing that makes life so special is humans. Conscious, loving, intentional, wonderful humans. So it's time orthodox science got off the pot and saw nature in a larger perspective. And that's what psychoenergetics science tries to do.
You know, Doug, Dr. Tiller here has, the scientific community is looking at or not looking at and maybe even laughing at some of what Dr. Tiller is presenting here. Now, in our everyday lives, you, having also been in the sciences as a chemist, you are in the work of the Reconnection are trying to explain to everyday people some of this work. These are not scientists, and yet even everyday people like us are saying that can be ridiculous, and some of us get it and some of us don't. How do you deal with that in your work?
Well, I think the best thing for people to recognize is to recognize that today's magic and the mysteries of today are just tomorrow's science. And that while there's so many things we do know, for example, about how the human body works and how it heals itself, there's a near infinite amount of things that we don't know. I mean, we don't even know how a body heals itself after it's been cut. We certainly don't know all the functions of the brain. We don't know exactly how the DNA works. And if we can admit those basic things, and if the informed medical community and scientific community can admit that we know so little about basic human functions, then at least we have the start of a conversation that can allow us to recognize that there could be something more. And, for example, when we talk about reconnective healing, we're talking about the fact that the body responds to information, and from that information and that vibration and that frequency that we work with in the healing context, somehow the body intelligently responds, and somehow the body then takes that information and then flows it into whatever channels it needs to help to facilitate healings. The fact that we can't explain it does not disallow it. And so that's where the conversation starts when people like Bill and I get together with Constantine and Gary, is we recognize that, hey, that there's something here that bears a lot of further investigation. It's very real, but of course we still don't know all the answers, so let's go further. It is, however, very real.
And actually, talk about very real. This weekend you were talking about the biological science and the chemical science. And can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm going to have Dr. Tiller talk about the energetic science or energetic medicine.
Absolutely. So part of some of the experiments we've done with reconnective healing is we've looked at the impact of the frequencies on things like the immune system and the hormone levels, and we've also looked at cell structure, and we've looked at plant DNA and human DNA and how it responds to these frequencies of healing. And much of this research was done with Dr. Gary Schwartz and Melinda Connor and Ann Baldwin and Mary Flores from University of Arizona, and also Dr. Glenn Ryan. And the basic essence of the findings is that somehow plant DNA and somehow human DNA and somehow our own hormones seem to be responding to information medicine. And in the case of reconnective healing, what we're specifically talking about is frequencies are brought near someone's body or around someone's body, and that somehow there's an energetic communication that occurs still on some levels that Bill could probably, I'm sure, could explain far better than I, but somehow the body simply responds to that information on a physical level, on a chemical level, and in many cases, sometimes in the form of a healing where disease states and symptoms just simply fall away.
So, Dr. Tiller, up until now, the biological medicine, I think is what it's called, how we've affected the body. Somebody gets sick, they cut something out or something like that. Then the chemical medicine, as I understand it, is kind of the next step up, where you could actually take a pill for something and make it all better. But now we're heading into something that I think you're terming, or at least working in, the energy medicine, correct? And so this is
I certainly have worked in energy medicine for a long time. I've been working in information medicine for a very long time as well. The metaphor that puts it together is what I call my silver colloid metaphor. If you take a glass of water and put some bacteria in it and throw a bunch of silver colloid particles, these are little tiny spheres of silver, then we know that it kills the bacteria generally, at least if they're the simple ones. And the idea that was developed was that physical contact between the silver and the bacteria was necessary to kill the bacteria. And that is what led to chemical medicine. That's what led to pharmacological development. However, what wasn't so well realized was that if you take the same jar of water with the bacteria in it, and you take a fluorescent lamp overhead, but make the electrodes out of silver, and have a lens outside which you focus some of this light on the water, then you also kill the bacteria. And so what you see is that it's not physical contact. It is at least one of the photons of the electromagnetic spectrum of silver. Everything radiates a particular spectrum of energies, and the photons are the communication vehicle. Now, so that's what led to energy medicine. And the next step in the picture is that if you do what we've been doing for the last dozen years or so, is you take a simple electrical box, and I mean the kind of thing that you might have bought at Radio Shack, the parts anyway, and back about the mid-1950s. So it's very low tech. But you take that and you put it on a tabletop and you turn it on electrically, and you have meditators sitting around it, and they go into a deep meditative state, and they imprint a specific intention into that box. And we find that after you've done all of this, you take the box and put it near the glass of water and turn it on. You can also kill the bacteria. And we have done a number of experiments that shows that this aspect of human consciousness, its human intention, allows you to, in fact, provide information to change the pH, the acid-alkaline balance of water, up or down significant levels beyond which, if it happened in the human blood, you'd be dead on both ends, whether up or down. We've done it in terms of liver enzymes in the body. We've done it with fruit fly larvae. We've been able to influence the concentration ratio of the energy storage molecule relative to its chemical precursor, but significant amounts with very, very significant statistical probabilities that it is not likely to happen by random chance. And we found we've been able to reduce the larval development time to the adult fly stage by up to 25%, with statistical probabilities 1 in 1,000 that it could have been by random chance. So this is what we have done in the beginning, just to prove that the unstated assumption of orthodox science is really quite wrong. And so we go on from there. We use these things now to influence healings of people. We use them to enhance the properties of chemical supplements. The goal that I'm searching for is to bring these into industry so that people can make money out of them, and then maybe the orthodox science community will look through the telescope at the data.
Well, I was going to ask you something, but as soon as you said making money off of it, and then it threw me off, because I was going to ask you, so when a mother kisses a boo-boo, if the child believes it could go away, that could happen.
Of course. The issue, look, the thing that is necessary to understand, I think, is that when you look at the human unconscious versus the human consciousness, the information handling capacity is more than 1 million times at the unconscious level compared to the conscious level. We're not very conscious as human beings. The unconscious takes in all this data, just at the 5 physical senses level, say, and it manipulates it. It probably draws graphs. It probably makes plots. It probably then produces little kernels of information which it sends to the conscious, so the conscious can experience what is going on. But it only sends it along those pathways that the consciousness has given meaning to. All the other seems to get dumped because the lack of meaning to an individual at the conscious level acts like a filter so that the information doesn't get through. But if a mother with a relationship with their child reaches out to kiss a boo-boo with that love pouring into the child, then the information gets through to the child, and the unconscious of the child heals the boo-boo.
Wow. Wow. Information coming through love. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, but before we do, Doug, you come from a business background. You have an MBA, and you were working for a large corporation as well, et cetera, et cetera. What drew you to this work? Certainly there must have been some kind of something that satisfied your scientific mind.
yeah, as you say, my background is kind of like unlikely to be a healer. I have an undergraduate degree in chemical engineering, and my very first job out of college was making diaper bags for Procter & Gamble. And then just to make myself less likely to be a healer, I went to business school and got a master's degree in marketing and accounting. I mean, I thought I was going to be the CEO of a company like P&G and AT&T and Deloitte and Touche and Walt Disney, and I worked for them all. And the universe had other plans. And
instead,
and
you went woo-woo.
Kind of, yeah, exactly. Those other plans kind of really just happened on a Friday afternoon. My CEO walked in, shut down my division, said, "Hey, Doug, you may or may not have a job on Monday," and smiled at me as he said, "Have a nice weekend." And ironically enough, or maybe coincidentally, or maybe just flat out on purpose, the universe somehow put some circumstances in front of me by which I met Dr. Eric Pearl the very next day, and he just happened to be looking for somebody to help out with the organization of his seminars, and I said, well, I just happened to be available as of 17 hours ago. So that was kind of my introduction to metaphysics and healing. And of course, as you can imagine, being a chemical engineer MBA, I just kind of looked at him straight in the face and said, you know, I don't believe you when you say that you can heal other people or that you can help facilitate healings. And I certainly don't believe you when you say that you can teach other people to be healers. That's just crazy stuff. So 8 years ago, I decided to just go take a look and see what his seminars are all about. And what I was amazed at is when I walked into the room, I could feel something. I mean, there's a palpable field effect, for lack of a better word, and I'm kind of borrowing some of your words here, Bill, but there's a palpable
because we can
field
experimentally
effect
measure that now.
Yeah, exactly. That anyone can feel, not just the people who are, you know, energy healers who have been trained or people who are medical doctors, but literally normal people, skeptics like myself, walking in with no training whatsoever. And I thought, oh my God, what is that? I can feel tingling in my hands. I can feel pulsing. I can feel vibrations. All of a sudden, I gained this new ability just from sitting in this room that Bill has measured a number of times.
Right. Actually, I wanted
maybe
to bring
you can
that
share
up,
a little bit about that.
Perfect time. Bill, could you talk about that? You've actually measured a room before anybody even entered it.
Yes, we. Our procedure is to use consciousness through a device to change the fundamental symmetry state of the room. It's called the electromagnetic gauge symmetry state. It's an expansion of group theory, and let's not go there because it's kind of complex. But the issue is that we can lift the symmetry state of the room to a level where you access another dimension of the universe, and the intention makes a change in the properties of that dimension of the universe, and it then allows you to change the properties of materials as seen using our normal instrumentation, which normally you can't access this other level of the universe. But the point is that we have developed, I've developed a mathematical theory to predict how this kind of phenomena can occur and how it influences the simple measurement like the pH of water, which is the acid-alkaline balance of water. And we use that as a detector probe. So it's simple physical chemistry, but altered in a very important way. And we get a quantitative measure of the aqueous hydrogen ion in terms of millielectron volts. And we can see how the room changes from zero excess value for the hydrogen ion, the thermodynamic free energy, and to very large values, several hundred millielectron volts. For example, the first time Eric had asked me to bring our instrument to one of their healing seminars over in Sedona, and we did so, and we found, in fact, that the space was somewhat conditioned towards this higher level of reality 6 hours before the workshop started. And when we measured it through the time frame of the workshop, we found that this excess thermodynamic free energy of the room went up to a maximum and then just slowly decayed over the subsequent 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, when you measure the room, there was nothing different about it at all.
That's 2 weeks after people had left the room.
So everybody had left, yes. And when you look at the numbers were really interesting, because if you say, how much would I have to thermally heat this room to get this kind of measurement? And it turned out that we would have had to heat the room by 300 degrees centigrade. Wow. And the issue was that the room changed only something of the order of, at the very most, 5 to 10 degrees centigrade during the session. Now, what this told me was that I need to back up one step. In nature, there is something called the thermodynamic free energy of a material. And that is what drives all processes that we know of, in nature. That is, if there's a difference in free energy between the point A and a point B, then there is a driving force to cause transport and reaction go in that direction. So, but in this function, pardon me for a little bit of mathematics, but it's important. There's a pressure volume term, which is what was used by Watt to make the steam engine run. Today we use it in the compressors of refrigerators. There's plus an energy term. The most familiar one that people are with is where physicists take particles and they throw them at a target at huge velocities and create explosions of particles, and we learn a lot about physics. And there's minus a temperature times what's called the thermodynamic entropy. With a constant entropy, if we take a temperature difference between the Earth and deep in the ocean or deep in the Earth, then we get geothermal energy effects. Okay, that again is a driving force energy. And the entropy thing is what's important here, because in the normal processes in nature, entropy increases in almost all the processes we know of. However, there is a process which is the generation of information in a system. And when that occurs, the quantitative increase in information is equal to minus the quantitative change in entropy, which means that if you have a process like the reconnection healing process, where you are delivering information into the individuals and not just head information, but a workshop where they are getting it into their organism, then that increase in information reduces the entropy of the room. And that's where this huge effect comes from. So it's generation of information, which really becomes a lowering of the entropy, which means it restores the potential of our world. And we're building it into ourselves through this process of reconnection healing and all kinds of other learning processes that humans get involved with.
Well, when we come back in just a second here, I want to ask Doug about this information. He's talking about more than just information as information here, obviously. Dr. William Tiller is. I want to remind everybody that you're listening to Filippo Voltaggio on Life Changes with Filippo, and you can learn more about us at lifechanges.ws and hear us every Monday night at 7 p.m. on the BBS Radio Network at bbsradio.com, or of course you can connect via our website. Want to also let you know that you can connect with us on Facebook, though I don't get on it often, if you heard us at the top of the show. But some of us do, like Dorothy Donahue does more often than I do, though she doesn't have that much more time. But in any event, so do connect with us, because we do not only enjoy hearing from you, but we learn what kind of guests you're interested in and what kind of topics that you're interested in, and we appreciate the comments as well. And we want to remind everybody that we've been talking to and are still talking to Dr. William Tiller, who is Professor Emeritus at Stanford University, and to Doug DeVito, who's got a bachelor's in chemistry and an MBA in business and is the head of planning for the Reconnection. He's also an author of a book called The Upgrade, Fulfilling the Promise of Human Potential. So as we come back to both of you gentlemen, Doug, this information that Dr. Tiller is talking about that was shared in this room as was this weekend, you're not just talking about information that we learn with our heads.
That's correct. It's not just words. There's many different levels of communication that seem to be happening and have been documented to be happening, both from the standpoint of the measurements that Dr. Tiller has done, as well as many of the measurements that Dr. Gary Schwartz from the University of Arizona has done, and Konstantin Korotkov and others. It's not just words. It's literally an energetic communication that transforms, very likely, our cellular and molecular structure, and all of those people who are sitting in the room are literally soaking in that energy and being transformed by it.
We see, if I can just jump in, we see
Please.
with the experiments that if you have, periodically, you have people focusing attention on the platform, and then getting up and walking around, and then sit down and then focus again. We find that when the people are focusing attention on the platform, we see the increase in thermodynamic free energy of the room. When they get up and walk around, we see a decrease, and when they change to sit down and pay attention again, then we see an increase, and we see these precisely. If we do this a dozen times, we see these differences occurring. And the information, I'm calling it infrastructure within some level of the self. The self is so much larger than we think it is. Sorry, go ahead.
No apologies necessary. I'm liking it. As a matter of fact, unfortunately, we have only about 5 more minutes here in this interview, and I'm thinking to myself, I can't wait to the next interview when I get to interview both of you individually. And maybe, Doug, for you, maybe that'll be when your book actually does come out. What is your book about, if you want to share real quickly?
Well, it's actually talking about the experience of the people who are sitting inside the room. And as suddenly people become healers and master healers, and suddenly they're gifted with abilities that they can feel and sense other inanimate objects, in the sense of, other human beings or animals. Of course, those are animate, but suddenly people are gaining abilities from sitting in that room. They can then help to heal others. They can heal themselves. But the biggest surprise, and this is why I had to write the book, was the people who are doing the work end up getting healings as well. So while they're there ostensibly in these healing sessions to learn how to heal others, and they do so, and there are wonderful results, they actually end up having physical and emotional and mental healings of their own on very significant levels, and that is the essence of the upgrade that's taking place.
Wow, this is exciting stuff, and gosh, 40 minutes is just not enough. But Dr. Tiller, you of course shared a little bit of this information in the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, and I do encourage people to go out and see that if they haven't, get a DVD copy. But are you planning on doing any other movies, or do you have any projects other than the Mastery Conference coming up, which we'll talk about in a moment, where we could hear you or see you?
In general, the only one that's definitely on the books is the Mastery Conference. I do have something in November which is percolating, in which I would teleconference for 8 or 10 hours between here in the U.S. and Taipei in Taiwan. So then beyond that, I'm just doing work, other work.
We're glad you're doing the work and sharing the information. And you will be sharing information at the Mastery Conference this weekend. What will you be talking about there?
Well, the title is called The Union of Logos and Mythos.
Wow.
Logos, from the ancient Greek, logos means accessing nature by looking outwards. mythos is accessing nature by looking inwards. And the ability to, which is our next step of development, I think, is where we make a union between these two things. In the past, we've been either one or the other. And it's time for us to be both.
You know, this both business, are you, some people have been saying that we're going to be bringing in the positive and the negative and combining that, the feminine and the male, and combining that. Do you get into that?
Well, the issue is, you know, nature, physics, let's say physics. Physics is neutral, can go in one direction or the other, however you want to use it. You look for symmetries, but there are all these possibilities. Can occur, do occur. The data that comes from looking at reincarnation data means we've all been men and women at different times. We've all been children and parents at different times, different lifetimes, etc. So if you take that data and give some meaning to it in your life, then you'll see that this is the way in which we come, the human soul comes to a sense of balance in nature. Okay?
Yeah, it's okay with me. When are we going to do this?
Well, I'm doing it on Sunday morning.
No. Okay, yes, I'm sure you are.
Oh, when are we individually going to do it? Well, the issue is, it's coming whether we like it or not, but we can make it faster or slower. It's up to us. We are, at the moment, co-creating our future. And like everything else, it's really all up to us. There are calamities. If we fear calamities or we wish calamities, there is great joy, great, wonderful opportunities if we adjust our mindset to be that, do that, become that, radiate that. It's up to us.
So all of these things that have been written before us that say that there are going to be these calamities and all that you just spoke about as well, you're saying that we can wish them away? No, well, wishing, it's a question of how your wishing comes about. The business of wishing, if you give great desire to an intention, and you've built yourself to become inner self-managed, so there's a lot of punch to your intention, then you can make changes. But just idly wishing, it isn't going to do it. It's building infrastructure into ourselves. We're the product of the process that we choose, and we become more and more and more, so that eventually, way, way down the road in development, whatever we become that which spins planets and stars out of ourselves. That's a long way down the road. But that's the potential that is within our evolutionary process. Wow. And that's to happen in our lifetime?
No.
Oh.
No. I mean, that takes... Look, there are avatars, all right? That we're heading along the path to move past becoming adepts to becoming masters and eventually avatars. We might be able to do... Some of us might be able to do that in this lifetime because we did a lot in earlier lifetimes. But these are slow processes. These are not quick processes. We are what becomes. It's making ourselves. Everything we do is an act of intention. Make the right intentions, build yourself the right way. To me, consciousness is a byproduct of spirit entering dense matter. And spirit can only move into dense matter and attach there if we have built infrastructure into ourselves. You know, it's like the issue of a radio station, okay? As you build yourself, then you broaden your bandwidth. And as you build yourself, you increase the amplitude of the signal you can send out. So eventually you get to be able to send out a very, very powerful signal over an incredibly broad band. That's what we become.
I like it, and that's exactly what we're doing here, too, as we're building this network to spread this information to more and more people. Doug, you sounded like you wanted to chime in there for a moment. Did you have something to say about that?
Well, I would just say that it's important to recognize that there are also tools and bandwidths of information that are here now. There are things that are transforming people. Literally, people are suddenly getting upgraded and suddenly, having their consciousness transformed from, sitting in these incredibly energized rooms. And, I think that ultimately the gift and the challenge of what we're facing is a short-term, this lifetime choice that we're making, and everyone now has a choice to step dramatically forward, whether we all suddenly become avatars or spin ourselves into stars. I really like the way you say that, Bill. Happens in this lifetime or not, we can all take a huge, tremendous evolutionary step forward now.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is at this point in time, it is possible to create a technical future that reveals and is much, much more joyful for humans than we presently have. But the humans, you have to pump the system to this higher level of reality. And if humans are not willing to develop themselves so that they can automatically pump the system to this higher level of reality, then you cannot have the scientific, industrial, technical society that can sustain that. And it'll just collapse back to the kind of world we have at the moment.
I'm beginning to understand that, and I appreciate you saying that. As a closing remark, Dr. Tiller, what would be, to you, the single most important action that we could take to prepare ourselves for these coming changes?
Well, I think for me, the single most important change is to begin to become a serious meditator within self, to become inner self-managed. You become a meditator, you go within, you quiet the noise, you begin to sense things. You take advantage of things like the reconnective healing and other systems around. I mean, Qigong is a way to increase power. Yoga is also very beneficial in all of this. Sufism, very beneficial in all this, to seek developing yourself within. That's the single most important thing at this time, because we're heading towards a change in the epoch several hundred years down the road if we don't blow ourselves up before then. But it's up to us. We have potential so vast. We're talking now about the physics of the physical vacuum. And if you take a cubic nanometer, which is something like 1 billion billion billionth of a meter, a cubic meter, that there is so much more energy in that little volume of the physical vacuum, which people think is nothing. There's more there than in all the planets and all the stars and all the cosmic dust in a cosmos of spherical radius of 15 billion light years. So what we have been dealing with is trivial compared to what is there for us to work on by going within.
Wow, that's exciting. Doug, in 30 seconds or less, so how about your response on that?
My thought that I would like everybody to recognize is that probably the most powerful and evolutionary thing, the most healing thing that you can do for yourself is learning how to help to heal others, and that by doing so with these new frequencies of healing, you can make material, significant, substantial improvements in your own life, and you do that by actually healing others. And I think that is the next big secret that people need to know.
Yep, I agree.
Well, I think this has been incredible. And actually, you all could hear these gentlemen speak at the 8th Annual North American Mastery Conference, celebrating the reconnection of healing, science, and consciousness. Joining them will be Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza, John Holland, Danian Brinkley, Catherine Brinkley, Terry Cole Whitaker, and Eric Pearl. So this is going to be a great opportunity to hear these luminaries speak. You could go to thereconnection.com and learn more about that, and also to learn more about our guest tonight, Doug DeVito. You can also go to Tiller Foundation, TILLER Foundation.com, to learn more about our guest, Dr. William Tiller.
Or just Tiller.org.
It's .org?
Tiller.org.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's the simple one, Tiller.org.
Oh, okay. That's another one, and it's more simple. Okay, so TILLER.org. So with that, I thank you, gentlemen, both Dr. Tiller and Doug DeVito, for being on our show tonight and presenting all this great information.
It was fun.
Thank you for having us on your show.
I'm glad. It was a pleasure having you. So looking forward to actually seeing both of you this weekend. I believe I'll be interviewing one or the other or both on camera. So I look forward to that as well.
Okay.
See you soon.
Yep,
okay.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. That's a lot of fun. And, of course, if you didn't get those websites, you can always go to lifechanges.ws, and you can get the website for each of those people there on our website. So with that, we are now ready to bring on Dorothy Lee Donahue with Change Yourself, Change the World. And interestingly enough, there has been a change in so many things going on in the world that I believe what she has to share with us will bring us to some of this.
Shift is happening. It's happening all over the place. As I mentioned, in January of this year, 2010 was declared the year of the shift for the light workers. And wow, what a shift it's been. For those of us who've been ready and willing to accept the responsibility for co-creating our lives by shifting our consciousness from fear to love. And things just keep shifting and shifting and accelerating for those of us who are choosing to step out of fear and into love. There are just not enough hours in my days and nights to process all of the information I've been downloaded with since September the 21st. And I want to share with the world all of the awesome and amazing gifts of unconditional love and of magic and acceptance that await our acceptance when we choose to love ourselves first and respect ourselves first. And then, and only then, can we love and respect one another as much as we all truly deserve to be loved and respected. Human beings are such funny creatures. We constantly search for love and respect from our parents, our siblings, classmates, relatives, bosses, business partners, neighbors, co-workers, lovers, wives, husbands, and others, without realizing and understanding that it is impossible to achieve this without first loving and respecting ourselves. People are always asking me in sessions, why? Why doesn't he or she love me back the way I love him or her? Can't they see we're supposed to be together, they ask. I just don't know. I know that he or she is my soulmate. You see it, don't you, Dorothy? In 999 out of 1,000 cases, the answer is this. They can't love you because you're not loving you the best that you can. And sadly, no one ever argues with this. No one ever says, you're wrong about that. I love myself so much. However, every now and then, 1 out of 1,000 will say, I'm working on that. Loving yourself is truly the first step to the happiness we all deserve. And if you haven't started a love affair with you, tonight's a good time to begin one. And it is the first step towards shift in consciousness. A classic example of not loving ourselves is a former client of mine, a woman who is head over heels in love, that's what she calls it, with another woman. The woman she's in love with is not only married, but she's also addicted to numbing herself out with sex, drugs, and alcohol because she's in denial about her sexual identity. If my former client would choose to love herself even a little, she could begin making more elegant choices instead of the very self-destructive choices she has been and is continuing to make now. She has been in this reactionship for over 5 years, And I only saw her once because it only took that one session for me to determine that she didn't want to take any responsibility whatsoever for her choices. She also couldn't or wouldn't tell me what it was that she loved about this other woman. Was it her addictions, her lack of sexual integrity, or any integrity at all for that matter? Her ability to lie to herself and to her husband and her children when she disappeared at all hours of the day or nights to be with my client? Or was it all of the drama and all of the trauma associated with the reaction ship? I learned long ago that when people told me that they were crazy in love with someone, that the word crazy was more apropos than the word love. Besides loving ourselves first, we really have to be the first to respect ourselves. I have a very good friend who calls me quite often to complain about her business partners not respecting her. This is her usual rant. Why don't they respect me enough to listen when I speak? They ask me questions and then they cut me off. I've worked overtime for years and I've always put the company first. I never take any time off for myself. Why don't they treat me better? And my question to my friend and to all of our listeners who have similar situations is this: why don't you treat you better? Respect yourself, love yourself, make the most elegant choices possible, always. This, my dear friends, is what the shift is all about. And the simple truth is, we will never find love or respect as long as we continue to look outside of ourselves for it. However, the moment we decide we deserve the love and respect we have earned through becoming unconditionally loving and respectful, then and only then, shift happens. And the people who we genuinely love and respect will either shift with us or we will move on and shift without them and find the people who've been waiting for us and who deserve us and all we have to give. Please join me in shifting and expanding your consciousness. It's a wonderful world, and we are moving so quickly. There's so much love. There's so much respect. There's so much happening. And until next week, please remember that you are the power in your world. And you are the guru you've been waiting and looking for. You're the only one who can end your suffering. And you can do this by beginning a love affair with you. Let us choose to become very conscious co-creators by making the most elegant choices possible. And let us never forget how powerful we are. We are powerful beyond measure. And we are love. We are lovable and we are loved.
Thank you, Dorothy Lee Donahue, with that Change Yourself, Change the World. And so things are changing. And that show went by so quickly, maybe because we had two wonderful guests on at the same time. And I'm looking forward to our next week's wonderful guest, who's going to be Daniel Pinchbeck, who is an author and also the featured protagonist in a movie coming up, 2012, Time for Change. Actually, we're going to be doing a screening of that movie at Sunset Lamley in Los Angeles. I think it's at 7:30 on Wednesday the 13th. There's a lot going on this week and next week. We're actually going to be at the Mastery Conference Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, interviewing these luminaries that we've mentioned throughout the show. And then, there's something on Tuesday. I better look at our calendar. I don't remember. Wednesday, we've got the screening. And then on Friday, we're going to be at the Conscious Life Expo at the Hilton at LAX. And we're going to be doing a Life Changes live event there. And we are going to have Alan Howarth, who is the guy that's responsible for bringing us scary music from all the music in Halloween and and movies like Star Trek and stuff like that. He's now doing raw music that cuts right through to the heart and brings the love vibration in. and so much more. So you can learn about him by coming to our live event, and also and his raw music, and also our musical guest is going to be Raspin Stewart, who is playing in all the Starbucks throughout throughout the country. So more on all that if you go to our website at lifechanges.ws. Today's show has been made possible in part by our sponsors, Ionways Water Systems, Change Your Water, Change Your Life, and Love and Miracles, and Dorothy Lee Donahue. To learn more about them, visit our sponsor page and click on their respective website links. I am Filippo Voltaggio, and it has been my pleasure being of service by hosting Life Changes with Filippo today. I, along with our hosts and producers, Dorothy Lee Donahue and Mark M. Lejour, and our engineer, Seth Hendrick, thank you for joining us and being part of this show and being part of the change we all wish to see in the world. Ciao, everyone.
You have been listening to Life Changes. Join us here every Monday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and visit us on the web at lifechangeswithfilippo.com. That's Filippo, Filippo. And follow our community on Facebook at Life Changes with Filippo. Join us here next week as we consciously embrace and explore the only constant, life changes.